Hello, my name is Kainson Munonye, and in this presentation, I'm going to be taking you through the Identify Risks process. And this is the second process under the Project Risk Management knowledge area. Previously on this knowledge area, we discussed Plan Risk Management that lays out the procedures and methodology to use in handling risks in the project. So today we are going to discuss Identify Risks, and that is the second process in this knowledge area. Identify risks is the process of determining which risk may affect the project and documenting their characteristics. And now the key benefit of this process is that documentation of existing risk is handled, and also the knowledge and ability it provides to the project team to anticipate events. So in risk identification, we have persons that are involved include project manager, the project team members, risk management team if there's anyone assigned, the customers, experts, end users, other project managers in the organization, stakeholders, and risk management experts. So basically, everybody is involved in this Identify Risks process. Identify Risk process is iterative. What it means is that Identify Risk continues throughout the knowledge area, throughout the processes and risk management, and of course throughout the project, because a new risk may evolve or become known as the project moves on through the life cycle. But then the frequency of the iteration and the participation in each cycle will vary by situation. The format of the risk statement should be consistent to ensure that each risk is understood clearly and unambiguously in order to support effective analysis and response development. So the risk statement should support the ability to compare the relative effect of one risk against others in the project. Let's now take a look at the ITTOs of Identify Risks. Remember, ITTOs means Input, Tools and Techniques and Outputs. The inputs are quite many, about 13 of them in all. It consists in the risk management plan, the cost management plan, the schedule management plan, quality management plan, and human resource management plan. We also have the scope baseline. Remember, the scope baseline is made up of the scope statement, WBS and the WBS dictionary. Activity cost estimates. Activity cost estimate is an output of the estimate costs process under the budgeting, under the project's cost knowledge area. Activity duration estimates. There is also an output of the estimate activity duration under the project time management knowledge area. We have the stakeholder register, an output of identify stakeholders, just a process just before this one. Then we have the project documents, procurement documents, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. The tools and techniques are document reviews, information gathering techniques, checklist analysis, assumption analysis, diagramming techniques, SWOT analysis, expert judgment. SWOT means strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We'll look at it in detail as we move on. The output of this process is just one, and this is this big important document called the risk register. Let's now look at these inputs closely. One of them is the risk management plan. Of course, the risk management plan provides the procedure, the assignment of roles and responsibilities, providing risk management activities in the budget and schedule, provides categories of risk, which are sometimes expressed as the risk breakdown structure, RBS, not resource breakdown structure. Here we are talking about risk breakdown structure. Another important input to identify risk is the cost management plan. The cost management plan provides processes and controls that can be used to help identify risks across the project. We also need the schedule management plan. It's necessary because it provides insights to project time, schedule objectives, and expectations which may be impacted by risks. We also need the quality management plan to provide insight to the time and schedule objectives, expectations which may be impacted by risks. Quality management plan provides a baseline of quality measures and metrics for use in identifying risks. Then we have the HR management plan, provides guidance on how human resources should be defined, staffed, and managed. Just a second, let me get this thing up. Alright, then we have the scope baseline we've mentioned before. Assumptions are found here in the scope statement, which is the content of the scope baseline. Uncertainty in the project, in the project assumptions could be evaluated. If these assumptions are not very okay, they might be potential causes of risks in the project. So we need to have the scope baseline handy for us to identify risks. Activity cost estimates. They are useful in identifying risks as they provide a quantitative assessment of the likely cost to complete scheduled activities, and ideally are expressed as range, with the width of the range indicating the degree of risk. Alright, then we have activity duration estimates. They are useful in identifying risks related to the time allowance for the activities of the project or the project as a whole. Again, with the width of the range of such estimates indicating the relative degrees of risks. Okay, so when you estimate an activity duration, this duration might not be very accurate. They might have some range of values. So the degree of the range might help you to get insight into possible risks. The stakeholder register contains lists of stakeholders, people that you might leverage on their knowledge to identify risks. For instance, the project sponsor, the customer. You interview these people to help you see if there are risks that are hidden that you might want to add to your risk register. Project documents like the project charter, the project schedule, the schedule network diagram, issue log, quality checklists, and other information. They are also necessary to identify risks. Procurement documents are also important in identifying risks. If the project requires external procurement of resources, then these documents are very important inputs to identify project risks. The complexity and the level of details in this procurement document should be consistent with the value of the risk associated with planned procurement. We also have enterprise environmental factors. Some of them that can influence identify risk process is published information, including commercial databases, academic studies, published checklists, and so on. And finally, we have organizational process assets as inputs. Organizational process assets can influence identify risk process. For instance, the project files including actual data, organizational and project process controls, risk statement formats or templates, and lessons learned. And then let's now take a look at the tools and techniques that might be used in identifying risks. One of them is documentation reviews. A structured review of project documentation may be performed. So, a formal review of the necessary project documents. This might include plans, assumptions, previous project files, agreements, and other information. The quality of the plans as well as consistency between these plans and the project requirements and assumptions may be indicators of risks in the project. So if you notice inconsistency in the documentation, that helps you to gain some insight. It may be an indication of a possible risk. If you also have plans that are not exactly in line with the project requirements and assumptions, that may also be reviewed to help you identify possible risks. Another tool and technique for identifying risks is information gathering techniques. That reminds me of the tool and techniques used in collect requirements under the scope management knowledge area. So similar tool and technique, because you have to reach out to people to gather this information. You might have to conduct a brainstorming section. Brainstorming has the goal to obtain a comprehensive list of project risks. So you are actually meeting with people, exchanging ideas, discussing these ideas, listening to these experts who may not even be part of the team. Delphi techniques has also been used in collect requirements as a part of the information gathering techniques, and is a way to reach a consensus of experts. Project risk experts participate in this technique anonymously. Why do we need Delphi techniques? Why do we not just conduct meetings? This is because Delphi techniques is unique, it's peculiar to itself, because it's not just like meetings. Sometimes there are participants who might want to remain unrevealed, unknown to others. So a facilitator in Delphi techniques uses questionnaire to solicit ideas about the important project risks. The responses are summarized and are then recirculated to experts for further comment. The Delphi techniques reduces bias, in the data and keeps anyone from having undue influence on the outcome. Another thing about the Delphi techniques is that inputs from experts might come easily, inputs that may not have been possible or easy to get when they're in an open meeting or in a brainstorming section, might easily be provided using Delphi techniques. Then we have interviewing techniques, is also an information gathering technique. In this technique, experienced project participants and stakeholders and subject matter experts are interviewed, and they help identify certain risks. Root cause analysis is also there, and it is techniques used to identify a problem, discover the underlying causes that lead to it, and develop preventive action. Another tool and technique used in identifying risks process is the checklist analysis. Good. Take note that a checklist is a structured list, and risk identification checklists are developed based on historical information and knowledge that has been accumulated from previous similar projects and from other sources of information. The lowest level of the resource breakdown structure can be used as a risk checklist. While a checklist may be quick and simple, it is not possible to get a comprehensive one, and care should be taken to ensure that checklist is not used to avoid the effort of proper risk identification. The team should also explore items that do not appear on the checklist. So we're saying that checklists are a list of things to be done. You want to ask maybe a question: is this and this in place? You check. Is this and this being done? Is this agreement been signed? Is so thing being confirmed? You check. So this, we are saying, does not give an exhaustive list. So you can't just base only on a checklist. Checklist is just a supportive tool and technique to be used. Alright. Another tool and technique is assumption analysis. This takes all the assumptions, look at their validity as it applies to the project, and it identifies risks to the project from inaccuracy, instability, inconsistency, or incompleteness of these assumptions. So assumption analysis prevents you from just saying this assumption is correct. It helps you to keep clear in your mind that these are just assumptions. They might be correct, they might not be correct. So keeping that clear in mind might help you to identify impending risks. Another tool and technique is diagramming techniques. Maybe the cause and effect diagram, also called the Ishikawa or fishbone diagram, helps identify trace effects to causes, to what caused it. System or process flow charts also necessary, and we also have influence diagrams. Influence diagrams are graphical representation of situations showing causal influences, time ordering of events, and other relationships among variables and outcomes. SWOT analysis, yes, this is important. The SWOT analysis examines the project from each of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats perspective to increase the breadth of identified risks by including internally generated risks. The SWOT technique starts with identification of strengths and weaknesses of the organization, and it focuses on either the project, the organization, or the business area in general. The SWOT analysis then identifies any opportunities for the projects that arise from organizational strengths and any threats arising from organizational weaknesses. Okay? So the analysis also examines the degree to which organizational strengths offset threats, as well as identifying opportunities that may serve to overcome weaknesses. Let's now look at the output. Also take note of one important tool and techniques used in identifying risks, expert judgment. I do not explain it here because in my previous presentations I've exhaustively discussed expert judgment. We say that the identify risk process have just one output, and that is the risk register. The primary output from identify risks is initial entry into the risk register. Yes, initial entry, because the risk register will be updated as the project continues and more risks are identified. The risk register is a document in which the result of risk analysis and risk response planning are recorded. It contains the outcomes of the other risk management processes as they are conducted, resulting in an increase in the level and type of information contained in the risk register over time. The preparation of the risk register begins in identify risk process with the following information and then becomes valuable to other project management and risk management processes. Let's now take a look at some of the items that might be contained in the risk register. Some might think it's just a list, a register of all the risks, just a list and outline of the risks, but no, it contains much more. One of the items contained is list of identified risks. That is very important. They are described in detail, as much detail as reasonable. A structure for describing risks in using risk statement may be applied. For example, event may occur causing impact, or if causes this, event may occur leading to effect. Okay, so these the amount of detail is necessary. In addition, the root cause of the risk may be more evident as time progresses, and these are updated. Alright, they also have list of potential responses, is also part of the risk register. Potential responses to a risk may sometimes be identified during the identify risk process. These responses, if identified in this process, should be used as inputs to plan risk responses process. Alright, this is how we round off in identify risk process. Take notes. The identify risk process is very important. It helps you to identify all possible project risks, their causes, the more details about this risk, potential responses for this risk. So the risk register is very important, that is going to be used almost throughout the project to continue to identify new risks and make updates on the identified risks. I hope you've learned much from this, and I would like to thank you for viewing. As usual, I take you back to the ITTO so that you spend some time mulling over these items. I hope you'll join me in my next presentation as I'm going to discuss perform qualitative risk assessment analysis, please.